My husband and I have been playing a game of tag for 5 years, but the rules have turned him into something terrifying. It all started after we saw the comedy film called Tag in 2018. For those of you who are unaware, it's based on a real story about a group of friends who played an endless version of the children's game. I think I enjoyed the film at the time, but I can't remember now. After years of this gradually worsening hell, I shudder every time I remember the concept that inspired my husband, Elliot. "Let's do it," he said. "Sorry?" I replied, smirking. "Right here? No." He laughed, rolling his eyes. "Not that. Tag. A never-ending game of tag. We live in the same house, so I mean, it probably wouldn't be as thrilling as the film," I said. "We'd just end up sitting on the sofa, constantly tagging each other in a back-and-forth slapping match." Elliot pondered on my point, tapping his lips thoughtfully. He was always a passionate person. Once he became hyper-fixated on something, it was hard to deter him, and I loved watching his face scrunch up as the cognitive cogs whirred away. But this time, my amusement at his fixation would be short-lived. "Okay," Elliot eventually said, as we hopped into the car. "We could make the game interesting. Only one person can be tagged per day. The game pauses until midnight, at which point whoever's it can tag the other." I laughed. "Midnight? Well, I think we both know that the tagging's going to happen when we're both in bed, don't we?" My husband smiled. It wasn't an unpleasant smile, to my eyes, but everything seems different in retrospect. "Who's saying I'd still be lying next to you?" he said. Even then, when I still thought his suggestion to be lighthearted, the way he said that sentence set my hairs on end. "No, we're not gonna be an old, married couple with separate beds. Why don't we make the starting point 6 p.m.? I asked. "Okay, wanna begin?" "Sure," I said. "Who's it first?" "You," Elliot replied. "I'll be a gentleman, and, tag, you're it," I squealed, laughing as I tapped his shoulder playfully. Elliot smiled, keeping his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "And it's 8 p.m. I guess I'll have to wait until tomorrow to get you back. You're going to be so easy to catch." And the next day, he proved that. At 6 p.m., on the dot, my husband silently emerged from a hiding spot behind the sofa and tagged me. I yelped, clutching my pounding chest. "I didn't even hear you come home. I didn't go to the office today." Elliot giggled. "I've been hiding there for hours." When I arrived home the next day, I waited for my husband to walk through the door so I could have my revenge. 6 p.m. came and went. At 7 p.m., I texted Elliot to ask when he'd be home. He responded that he was sleeping at the office to avoid being tagged, and when he didn't show up the day after, I told him that tag might cost us our relationship if I were never to see him again. His response infuriated me. "Nice try. Ultimatums won't work. I don't want to be it." When I told him that he'd better come home, his response sparked a ripple of shivers across my body. "Oh, but I am home, darling. You just haven't seen me yet." Then I heard a slightest creak from the cupboard beneath the sink. When I opened the double doors, there was my husband. And ordinarily, that would have been a funny sight, wouldn't it? Just a game of tag that had reached dizzying heights of ridiculousness. But you didn't see his face. That wasn't Elliot. Not my Elliot. Bulging, unblinking, bloodshot eyes, unhinged smile, frothing at the lips, that giggle. Ever since he suggested we play tag, the man I knew was gone. Throughout lockdown, given that we were living in such close quarters, the game did become slightly easier, but Elliot lost a piece of himself with every passing day. I tried to get him to hyper-fixate on something else. No use. Still, whenever one of us had been tagged and the game paused, my husband returned to his normal self. That was when I decided I was going to stop playing. It was the only way to get him back. So, Elliot tagged me, and I didn't return the tag on the following day. For months, things returned to normal. But then, one day, at a local restaurant, he brought up the topic again. "Lisa," Elliot started. "What?"